Now I'll introduce you to a very important technique from classical astrology, which we can call the relative house technique. It's relatively simple compared to many other techniques, and I'll walk you through the nitty-gritty details of how to use it. I'm offering a new report called The Houses of Life. And this report evaluates and explains each of your 12 houses and each subtopic of each house. So let's talk a bit and let me share some of the techniques and systems that drive this unique report. So here's the basic rule that I want to focus on. And this is from Phaladipika, 15th chapter, the second and the fourth text. The original language is Tad bhava trikone susukha madanabhe chaspade somya yukte papanam drishtihine bhavanapasahite papa ketair ayukte bhavanam pushtiyahu sakala shubhakarim Anyatachet pranasham Mishram Mishrair Grahaindra Sakalamapitata Murti Bhavadikanam. In English, it means that a house can be said to flourish to complete prosperity when its trines 4th, 7th, 10th, and 2nd is joined by benefics without aspect or union from malefics. The reverse causes destruction, and a mixture causes a mixture. So he's using very black and white and extreme words and describing them with very, very extreme situations, and then he's saying mixture in between. You get a spectrum in between. It will flourish to complete prosperity if you have benefics in these very important places, and it will be destroyed entirely if you have malefics. Then he also adds a moment later, Lagnadi bhavat ripurandra riphe papa grahastad bhavanadi nasham somyastu natyantapala pradasyu bhavadikanam palam eva ahu. When this means that malefics in the 6th, 8th, or 12th from a house indicate destruction for that house, but this can be mitigated by benefics. So you notice he's always talking about tat bhava from that house. So this is why we're calling it the relative house, and that's why it's like looking at yourself in a mirror from different angles. You're looking at the chart from a different angle. Instead of looking at the lagna as the ascendant, you move the lagna someplace else and look at it from a different angle. So now relative to such and such house, count 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 signs, houses from it. To summarize what he has described here as his rule, he's basically saying that a house will prosper if there are good planets in 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, and 10. And it will suffer if there's bad planets there. So the easy way to remember 2, 4, 7, 9, and 10 is just that these are the kendras and the konas. These are the angles and the trines. Except the only thing is that you substitute 2 for 1. Instead of 1, 5, 9 or 1, 4, 7, 10, you do 2 instead of 1. Because why? Why not count the house itself? That's counted in other rules. So in this particular rule, he's taking 2, which is the house of support, and then the kendras and the konas. These are the important or prosperous places. If you have good planets there, it's good for the house. If you have bad planets there, it's bad for the house. Then the other part of the rule is really just the dustans. It's very simple. The house will suffer if there are bad planets in its dustana, which is 6, 8, and 12. And the good planets here can't really produce good results, but they can mitigate the bad results. To summarize it even a bit more simple, we're going to have 2 rules here, the KK rule and the Dustan rule. KK is Kendra Kona. The KK rule is good planets are good, bad planets are bad. Simple rule. So a good planet in the Kendrakona is good. Bad planet in the Kendrakona is bad. That's the summary of the KK rule. The Dustan rule: bad planets are bad. Good planets lessen the badness. Okay, I recorded the whole thing and my microphone started to get all weird, so I'm going to re-record it. Let's apply this rule now to Marilyn Monroe's 4th house. The first thing that we need to do is sort out what are the houses relative to the 4th house. So what you do is you realize that Scorpio is the 4th house because it's the whole sign system. This technique only works with the whole sign system. And then you just count the signs in regular order from there. So the next sign from Scorpio, Sagittarius, is the next house, the 2nd house. The next sign, Capricorn, is the next house, the 3rd. Then Aquarius is the 4th, Pisces is the 5th, Aries is the 6th, Taurus is the 7th, Gemini the 8th, Cancer the 9th, Leo the 10th, Virgo the 11th, and Libra the 12th. So these are the houses in relation to the 4th house. So because Libra is the 12th sign from Scorpio, and because Scorpio is the 4th house, then Libra is the 12th house from the 4th. So here we have our relative houses. Now we want to group them into the KK group and the Dustan group, the Kendrakona group and the Dustan group. The Kendrakona group is going to be 2, 4, 5, 7, 10, and 9. So that's going to be Sagittarius, Aquarius, Pisces, Taurus, Cancer, and Leo. And then the Dustan signs are Aries, Gemini, and Libra. Aries is the 6th sign from Scorpio, so it's the 6th house from the 4th, so it's a Dustan for the 4th. Then what we want to do is see if there's good planets in the Kendrakona or bad planets in the Kendrakona, etc. But before we can do that, we need to agree upon a definition of what are the good and what are the bad planets. So the simplest definition of a good and a bad planet is just the natural benefics are good and the natural malefics are bad. So you could do it that way, and you could say, well, a house will prosper if it has Venus and Jupiter in Kendras and Konas, and it will suffer if it has Mars or Saturn there. So here Marilyn's 4th house would suffer because it has Mars in the trine, in the Kona, from the 4th house. So that's one way of defining what's good and bad. Another way is to consider the functional benefics and malefics, and this is more sophisticated, and I recommend it more enthusiastically because it includes the concept of the natural benefics and malefics, and then it figures out functional benefics and malefics. And you can watch episode 1 of the Houses of Life Techniques series, of which you're currently watching episode 5, to find out more about how you figure out functional benefics and malefics. So you could say, well, the sun is a very good planet for a Leo ascendant. It's functionally very benefic because it's the first lord. So it would be great if she had the sun in a Kendra or Kona in an angle or a trine to her 4th house, but unfortunately she has it in a Dustan, so it can only mitigate bad things there. This is a better approach to defining the good and bad planets, but what I do, and what I most enthusiastically recommend, is that you do functional benefics and malefics relative to the house that you've made everything relative to. So I'll show you how to do that quickly for Marilyn Monroe's 4th house. The sun owns Leo, which is the 10th sign from Scorpio, so it's the 10th house from the 4th. The 10th is nothing special, so the sun has neutral functional nature. But because its dignity is slightly negative, then it's slightly functionally negative. The moon owns Cancer, which is the 9th sign from Scorpio. So it owns a trine from the 4th house, and therefore it's benefic for the 4th house. Mercury, however, owns Gemini, which is the 8th house from the 8th sign from Scorpio, so it's the 8th house from the 4th house. So Mercury, therefore, is malefic for Marilyn Monroe's 4th house, for the Leo 4th house in general. And Venus is also malefic because Libra, its Mul Trikona, is adduced on the 12th house, the 12th sign from Scorpio. Mars, however, although a natural malefic, is actually a benefic planet for Leo's 4th house. Why? Because Mars owns Leo's 4th house. So it's very benefic for the 4th house. Jupiter is also benefic for Leo's 4th house. Why? Because it owns Pisces. Pisces is trine to Scorpio. Scorpio is Leo's 4th house. Saturn, the final one, is malefic, not because of the houses that it owns. It owns these neutral houses, 3 and 4. But because the inherent nature of the planet is also taken into consideration. So since Saturn is inherently malefic, it's going to function like a malefic, since its houses are not pushing it to do anything else. So now we know which planets are good for her 4th house and which planets are bad for her 4th house. The good ones are Moon, Mars, and Jupiter, and the bad ones are Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn. So now that we know the good planets and the bad planets, we can evaluate these rules. We can see Saturn is a bad planet, but it's not in an important house. It's neither in a Dusthana, nor is it in a Kendrakona. So we'll skip Saturn. Moon, Jupiter, and Mars, the 3 good planets, they match a rule because they are in the 4th and the 5th signs from Scorpio. So they're in the 4th and the 5th houses relative to the 4th house. So this matches KK rule in a positive way. And then of the 4 planets that are bad for the 4th house, we already covered Saturn as being not an important house. The other 3, Venus, Mercury, and the Sun, those guys are in Dusthans. Venus is in Aries, which is the 6th from Scorpio, the 4th house. And the Sun and Mercury are in Gemini, which is the 8th from Scorpio, the 4th house. So these match the Dusthans rule as negative planets. So that's going to be a negative thing, but when you have a negative planet in a Dusthan, you have to see if it has benefic influence, because the benefic influence will mitigate. So here it gets a little complicated. I put the table up on the screen that shows all of the Parashari's Bhuta Drishti, which means degree-specific aspects of Vedic astrology. I'm showing you a table with all the values from that system. So what you could do is you want to see how much are the good planets influencing Venus, because Venus has got this Dusthan rule. And how much are they influencing Mercury, and how much are they influencing the Sun? The amount that they influence Venus, Mercury, and the Sun is the amount that they'll mitigate the negativity caused by these planets being in these difficult houses. So you can find Venus's row on the table, and you can go across the column of the planet that you're trying to find the influence of. So it's got 42 influence from the Moon, 7 from Mars, and 28 from Jupiter. Average those up, and you get 26% of benefic mitigation on Venus. If you do that for Mercury, you'll get 69%. If you do it for the Sun, you'll get 73%. And then if you take an average of all 3 of those numbers, you get 56. So what you figure out with this chart is that although she has 3 planets that are negative planets in Dusthans to her 4th house, she's got a lot of benefic influence on those 3 planets. And so that benefic influence will mitigate 56% of the negative effect. Now let's score these things to really quantify them clearly in a numeric way. What you're going to do to score these positive and negative planets is do the scaling that I taught you in episode 2. So I'll just briefly remind you about how the scaling works. The Moon is a positive planet because it's functionally benefic for the 4th house, and it's in the 4th sign from the 4th house. So you take its functional beneficence, which is measured as 0.5. See episode 1 if you want to know why. And then you're going to give it a bonus of its dignity times its beneficence. So it's going to get 50 plus 40% of 50, which equals 70. So the Moon is contributing 70 points of positivity to Marilyn Monroe's 4th house by virtue of its having the dignity that it has and being in the 4th sign from her 4th house. With Jupiter, you see that it's contributing double that amount, 140 points of positivity. And the simple reason for that is that it's functionally twice as benefic as the moon. Because Jupiter is naturally benefic and it also owns a trine, whereas the moon is just neutral and it only owns a trine. Now, if you look at Mars, it's even more. It's almost twice as much as Jupiter. And this is because Mars is the lord of the fourth house. So it's the most functionally benefic planet for that house. And it also has a very good dignity, being in a friendly sign. A very friendly sign. So it's going to be 150 plus 60% of 150 is going to contribute 240 points of positivity to the fourth house. So the total amount of positive contribution to the fourth house by virtue of how the planets are configured in relation to our fourth house is 450 good points. And now when you look at the negative planets, you start with Venus. The functional nature is negative 0.5. The dignity is 0.4 positive. So the positive dignity mitigates negative factors. But it can mitigate by a maximum of half. So there's the formula on the screen. It's minus 50 for the functionality, plus it's getting mitigated 40% of half of 50, isn't it? Because it's in the sixth house from the fourth house, it has a negative effect on the fourth house, but the quantified amount of that negative effect is minus 40. Mercury, minus 30, a little bit less because it has a better dignity. Sun, a little tiny bit less than Mercury because it's not really very functionally malefic. It's just slightly functionally malefic. So then what you do with these negative scores is you tally them up again, but then you have to do the mitigation factor of what is the effect of the benefic planets on these guys. So when you tally up these three numbers, you get minus 98. And then when you mitigate 56% of 98, you come up with 48. In other words, you multiply 98 by 56, and whatever that number is, you subtract it from 98. So then you just put 450 and negative 48 together, you get 402, and then you divide it by 6 because there's 6 planets involved. And then you see that the amount of positivity contribution to the fourth house will be quantified as 67 positivity, 67% positivity. And you should do this for every single house in the chart. And then you can see how each house is being affected by virtue of what's in its angles and trines and what's in its dusthanas. I will just walk you through the fourth house. The rest of them you can do on your own. And this is just one part of the formula. This is now episode 5 of the series, so you've seen several of the parts of what goes into evaluating a house. We're almost done showing all the parts, and when I've shown you all the parts, I'll also show you how to put them all together. So subscribe to the channel and get the notifications bell and everything so that you don't miss the complete series of the House of Life technique. Thank you very much. I hope this helped you better understand at least one of the techniques and systems that's involved in this great new report of mine, the Houses of Life. If you want to see how these things come together for you, then go to vicdecara.com/H and order your own report today. Thanks very much.